What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Policy War. On this show, we basically talk about different potential policies and why we think they are good, why we think they are bad. I am the presiding host, Micah, or Nuance Beast, and these are the other hosts, Russell and Matthew.
Yep.
Say hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Anyway, on this episode, we are going to be talking about the different voting systems. Obviously, in America, we use a system called first past the post or plurality voting, in which, you're probably familiar with it if you've ever voted in America. You just vote for one candidate and whoever gets the most votes wins. But there are other voting systems, and the reason for these other voting systems is because first past the post often leads to just two parties essentially having total control over the entire electoral system within a country. This is seen in a lot of first past the post countries. Not all first past the post countries. Obviously, Canada has it, but they're not quite as two-party dominated. Anyway, the first system we're going to be talking about is ranked choice voting or instant runoff voting. So basically, ranked choice voting is a simple system. It's basically just like the first past the post system, except instead of voting for just one candidate, you rank your candidates from greatest to least. You rank them number one, then you rank number two, you rank number three, you rank number four, all the way down to your least favorite candidate. And basically the way it works is you have multiple rounds of voting. So the first round, the voter counters will just count the number one choice of everyone. Then they'll take then basically the number one, the person who gets plurality, gets to stay. All the votes for that person stay, and all the other votes simply transfer to the second most favorite. So let's say that we have a vote for a primary, or not a vote for a general in America, and we have someone who wants to vote for the Green Party opposed to any of the other ones, and so we get one round. The person who gets the most votes is the Republican, but then because they didn't get a majority, the votes for the person who voted for the Green Party, their second choice, which was the Democrats, will then transfer, meaning that you could end up with the Democrat ending up winning. Effectively, it gets rid of the spoiler effect and reduces wasted votes. So what's your guys' opinion on this?
I think I will selfishly take first opinion on this and say that ranked choice is a system that many European countries have, like Finland, Scandinavia, Northern Ireland. It's a choice that obviously gives the voters more choice because usually it's like 1-5, 1-3. So saying in this, I don't know, upcoming election, say in a random election where your preferred candidates is number one, and you have another one that's kind of a fringe candidate, kind of like a Ralph Nader. You want to put them as number two, then that's fine because you're not throwing away your vote. Ranked choice voting kind of takes away the predicament of, oh, I threw away my votes because that person had no chance of winning. It actually gives a bigger chance for third-party candidates to win. And here's why this is a good thing if you like third parties, because America is basically controlled by Democrats and Republicans. Once you include ranked choice voting, it takes away that throw away your vote effect, and it allows you to vote for things like the Green Party, the Libertarians, and independent candidates. If you see the United States Senate, there's only one independent, Bernie, who was forced to run as a Democrat in the presidential election because it's almost impossible for an independent to win the presidency. And it's astounding that he even won his Senate election. So this will see more diverse political opinion, but also has many other aspects to it, which I'm sure Matthew want to talk.
So I guess one thing I'd think about is you could still technically vote by whoever crosses the post first, because you could just leave a vote ranked one, correct? Like you could just vote whoever's top, and then so would those votes be disqualified, or would you allow them to be as is? You could still have the spoiler effect in that regard if you allow that to happen. You know what I mean? Like the people who are Bernie or bust, you could have the same thing. They could just vote, Bernie Sanders, and that's it.
That's
I'm pretty sure that in a ranked system, you're required to put every candidate with a number.
What if you feel so strongly against a candidate that you don't even want to vote for them? And you just put 3 throwaways, or can you even put throwaways?
I think some systems do the requirement and some don't, because I would think a reason for that. It's hard for voters to know a lot about 3 to 5 candidates all at the same time, especially when there's multiple county elections, local elections, state elections, federal elections. It's just too much information to keep account of. So some may make it required and some may make it a choice. That's their choice. Like at that point, you are choosing to throw away your votes rather than being forced to throw away your vote and only having, one vote. So that's the difference there. Like that person is choosing to throw away their vote and not vote, second place Hillary or whatever. While in the previous system, if you voted somebody third party like Jill Stein, you knew your vote was useless no matter what you did. And I think, that's the difference with that.
Well, how often do people actually look past the top 2 or 3 candidates? You know what I mean? How often do people actually look into the actual policies of the candidate? Even then, you look at all the possible policies they could have. How many people actually sit down and take the time to look into these issues? I mean, don't get me wrong. This could be considered more fair, but I guess it's more of a critique of the system overall, that nobody has the time to dedicate towards that and then live their life. Or almost nobody has that time, unless you're already in politics to begin with, or in that field.
I found a resource that helped me a lot when I was voting in the Democratic primary a little bit earlier. It was actually this website called Elections Wiki or Ballotpedia. It actually helped a lot. Yeah.
And I think this will encourage people to look into candidates more, even though, of course, they're not be thoroughly educated. I don't know any candidate's position on every policy. I'm not going to devote time to that because it's just words a lot of the time. But do you think this will encourage people to be more educated about politics?
I personally don't think it will. I mean, you're going to have some sort of reform in the education system and maybe like a national holiday or more emphasis on it, because most people flock to. Okay, so I guess this is a common argument I could use. How many of you know who the mayor of your city is or your town?
His name is Tim Alinsky.
Okay, do you know who the coroner is? Do you know who the sheriff is? Do you know who the judge is? Do you know who the clerk for your county is? Do you know who the representative of your region is?
Yeah.
Representative of my region. I think I know her name. She's a state senator, and her name is Sharice Davids.
State and national level.
Yeah, no, I understand the point you're getting
at.
I
can't name off half those either, but what I'm saying is people don't think in that fashion. They just look at the interests that they currently have, and most people aren't attached to that. They usually just look at the national level expecting all of this to change because they see what happens on the big stage instead of what happens locally. And so it's one of those things where until you have people actively taking part, you could change the voting system all you up, but until people feel like a responsibility or civic duty to do it, it doesn't change it.
Yeah. And in the case of local elections, I feel like most people, if it is partisan, then they'll just vote on a party basis.
Yeah. And then it's like, do people really intend to do that? I guess that brings up kind of like a philosophical question. Is a vote cast without thought put behind it worth as much as a vote that actually had thought put behind it? You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. I think you're kind of discussing two different things. Like, you're talking about the huge numbers of different elected offices in local government, which is hard to understand, while ranked choice voting is the method for how to elect people in those offices.
Yeah.
I think it's the reason why local elections have such low voter turnouts is because it's hard to learn about all the different offices. And honestly, I think county government should be abolished. Not for that reason, for a lot of other reasons, but I think there's a lot of bureaucracy in there. And I don't think ranked choice voting really makes that worse or improves it. Just changes the method. Like, there was a study done after Minneapolis had ranked choice voting for their city, and it showed there was much more satisfaction in the voting after they had ranked choice because you have more freedom in who you choose. Now, I don't think it helps that much with like the bureaucracy of local government, but what about the problems it does solve? Like
I was.
Mm.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I was done.
I was just kind of going more towards the thing of, do you think this will improve, voter output, or do you think this would improve the system overall? I mean, it's a change, and yes, you'll have more freedom, but I don't believe it's going to draw a bunch of people into taking as much of a participation in civics.
It's very
Oh,
possible.
I don't believe it would either.
Mm.
Personally, that's not
I
why I
mean-
want to. That's not really why I support the voting reform.
Well, I do believe this, along with another thing, like which we'll get later in the episode, proportional representation. It may or may not. I think giving voters more choices can only help the situation, while it may not make dramatic change in voter turnout and political apathy. I think this is a step in the right direction, but I do want to discuss, Mike's views on ranked choice and also proportional representation.
Okay. So are we switching to proportional now?
I mean, yeah, you can if you want.
Okay. So real quick, the differences, the big appeal to me of ranked choice is that it gets rid of the spoiler effect, but beyond that, it doesn't really change things enough. Proportional representation is a bit different. So the basic properties of a proportional system is that you have multiple members being elected from a single district in a single election. So usually at least 3, but preferably more like 4 or 5, maybe even 6. And the way it works is party list proportional representation is the most common kind. There is a different kind as well, but this is the kind that we're mostly thinking of. In this version, each party has a list of candidates that you can vote for. So let's say you have the Democrats and you have the Republicans and you have the Greens and the Libertarians. All 4 parties are running. Each of them would have 6 candidates. They are in the case of a 6-member district. Each of them would have 6 candidates that they have on the ballot. You cast a vote for one party, and based upon the percentage of the votes that happen in the district, that is the percentage of the candidates that will come from each party. So in the case of a 6-member district, if you get if a party gets 1/6 of the vote, then they will get one of their candidates will get to go to Congress. So basically that's how it works. Now, in terms of determining the priority of the list, so obviously which candidate from the list gets to go in the case of like them getting 1 seat. Well, generally speaking, what they'll do is they'll have the person who votes for that party gets to rank the candidates on the list, and that determines the priority of the candidates. So essentially, the way that this works is it actually does genuinely help third parties get elected. This is a system that is partially used in New Zealand and Germany. But in New Zealand, I know that over there they have 5 political parties with seats in Parliament. There are 2 really big ones, or comparatively big ones: the National Party and the Labour Party. But besides them, there's like 3 other parties, all of which are relatively sizable within Parliament. There's the Green Party, the New Zealand First Party, and the Libertarian Party, I believe. And so they're all relatively big considering that they're third parties. So much so that the Labour Party has actually been forced to form a coalition with 2 other parties. So if a priority of yours is trying to get rid of the duopoly that the 2 parties in America have on the system, or if in general you prefer to have a plurality of parties as opposed to or a large number of parties as opposed to just 2 parties, then proportional systems are probably what you're going to prefer. So yeah.
What do you think about this, man?
I think it's a fair way to do elections. Don't get me wrong; both ways that you've mentioned are fair improvements.
Yeah.
I just don't know whether it would. Of course, this is all anecdotal. I just don't know whether it would really be the most efficient way to do so.
What do you mean?
I mean, I think that if we advance communication like we have, with the internet, we may see third parties being able to compete with just being able to have an amplified voice. You know what I mean? Being able to get that screen time through other mediums instead of just television or newspaper or radio. Actually social media and cultivating their own following.
I think it's conceivable that if you had a candidate running for like a third party that was actually like noteworthy, that was high profile enough, like perhaps you had to have a massive celebrity, and I mean massive, like
Dwayne Johnson. Let's go.
like someone like that who decided to run for the Green Party or the Libertarian Party. I think conceivably it's possible they could win. But I'm just saying, in general, the system we have now makes it more difficult. For parties.
I agree. It would make it a lot easier for those parties to win seats because they don't have to win, the majority, and you might have a more equal representation compared to, just and it might also help help with gerrymandering, because you figure you won't have the lumping of, oh well, this is a mostly blue district, and then.
Yeah. Do you want to describe a little bit what gerrymandering is for people that don't?
So gerrymandering is essentially when you change the border lines of the districts so that you can have one party win. So if there's an area that's majority Democrat, let's say, and has a small Republican area, you might chop that into three districts where two of them are blue and one of them's red, where you might just make one blue district and one red district.
And I forget, there was a movement which was a referendum by a ballot initiative, which get enough petitions, then your referendum can basically put on the floor for a vote. In some northern states, I don't want to say what the particular states are, in which some states have removed it and have created a bipartisan gerrymandering commission. So yes, there are better solutions to increase voter turnout, maybe get third parties, but I think proportional representation is important because I just want to explain a little bit on why two-party system is bad. The two-party system is bad is because there aren't two views on politics in America. It's much more diversified than that. In Germany, they have 4 to 5 parties in government, sometimes more than that at all times. And that's obviously not equal to people's views either, but it's more representative, and proportional representation makes it so there isn't just two views shown. So I think it does help. While it may not be the dramatic boost that you're looking for, I think it helps a lot. And if the United States did this, say, on a bigger level, like, say, with the House of Representatives, it's very possible it gets the third-party candidates in big positions. And we've had the internet. The internet have been in massive use since the dot-com crash, in all honesty. Like, it's been growing and growing. It's still third-party candidates have not gotten much ground at all. Even independent media, simple things like blogs, social media posts, YouTube channels, podcasts, they don't really help that much because the main voice is still Republicans and Democrats. There's closed primaries in which you can only vote if you're Republican or Democrat. And like the proportional representation just cuts through that. Yeah. I don't think candidates going to social media more or having their own debates on television would really help that much if the system's corrupt.
Well, I guess it might be a chicken and the egg situation, because it's like you have to get into office and do something noteworthy because nobody wants to vote for a third party candidate that can't really hold themselves, or hasn't proven themselves or doesn't have sound policy. And so in order to do that, you likely affiliate with one of the two parties. And there's nothing wrong with flipping parties. I mean, if you look at Donald Trump's history, he's run as both Democrat and Republican throughout his history of running. So it's one of those things where it's like, individuals know that at the top level. They know, okay, if you're going for office, you need to play with it. And I guess going off of one of your problems you said with the two-party system is that you just have radical shifts. One perfect example is like what was happening with NASA. So you start out with a Gemini project under Bush wanting to go back to the moon. And then you get to the Obama administration, that gets scrapped. You go on a totally different project to mine asteroids, and then that gets scrapped. And then you switch projects. And so it's like somebody having a really short attention span. You know what I mean? It's just like you switch projects, and so there's no longevity to it. It's just no focus on the future. It's just all over the place.
Yeah. So my opinion is that I personally think proportional representation is important, mostly because of the things that you guys said. But I suppose if one wants to draw a comparison to like the market forces, you could say that having more parties is important because then they essentially have to compete with each other, meaning that they have to sort of improve themselves. Whereas when they have a two-party domination, they both know that they have essentially a monopoly on the system.
Right.
And so if you aren't happy with either of them, you essentially have to just not vote. And I believe that with a proportional system, then you probably would get a much better representation of the people's will. And that's just my opinion.
And that's true. They are forced to coalition with other parties, and it's not about, Republicans have 52 and Democrats have 48. It would be more so like, Republicans have 33, Democrats have 33, say Libertarian 17, Green Party, they're non-existent. Sorry, Green Party. But I do want to say it would force that more, since they'd be forced to go with the side that is maybe more radical or maybe more progressive, maybe more conservative than they are. So they don't completely control the political narrative about what being conservative is or what being liberal is. It's actually a conversation amongst a bigger portion of the country. I think it's really important. And that's what all the European parties look like. And in all honesty, there's a lot less government shutdowns in those parties, in those countries, mostly because, they work with each other better.
Yeah.
So, I just want to take us up.
So anyway, this is basically just my opinion. I think that the more proportional of a system you have, the sort of better representative of the people. Because in a majoritarian system like first past the post, a large amount of the people essentially go unheard because their candidate lost. Whereas in a proportional system, everyone it's much easier to get at least some representation in the parliament or the Congress. And just as an example, in America, we have first past the post, and we have two parties. In Germany, they have proportional representation. They have like 6 parties. And the different parties are, and like I believe like 3 parties were forced to form a coalition in order to get the government. Merkel is the chancellor, and she's a part of the coalition.
Angela Merkel. Yep.
So anyway, I hope you guys. I guess that's just a bit. That's it. That's just. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Like, comment, subscribe, and
please leave a review on iTunes if you are listening on there. But we also have a YouTube channel. Yeah.
Yep. Peace out.
Well, all right.